All right, today we're talking about going back to the moon. But this isn't just America's show. You see, behind the most powerful rocket ever built, there's a critical piece of European engineering, and without it, the whole mission just wouldn't be possible. So let's get into it. Can you believe it? 50 years, a whole half-century since humans last walked on the moon. Well, that long wait is finally over. And the Artemis program, it's not just about planting another flag. This is about building a permanent presence up there and getting ready for humanity's next giant leap.
You see, the goal with Artemis is way bigger than just a return trip. This is all about laying the foundation for a long-term, sustainable human presence on the moon. And that is going to be the crucial stepping stone for the even bigger, more ambitious goal of sending astronauts to Mars.
But, this mission is about so much more than just technology. It's really about who we are as a people. Artemis 3 is set to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. That is a truly historic moment that reflects the progress we've made and the future we're all striving for.
Okay, so how are the astronauts actually going to get there? Well, they'll be making the journey in the Orion spacecraft. This is a vehicle designed to carry humans farther into space than we've ever gone before. It's an absolute marvel of engineering, but it can't do its job alone.
The astronauts are going to live and work inside what's called the crew module. Think of it as their home and office for the mission. It's the only part of the entire spacecraft that actually returns to Earth, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean when it's all said and done.
Which of course brings up a critical question, right? The crew module is the habitat, but how does it get everything it needs to keep the crew alive and the spacecraft running when it's hundreds of thousands of kilometers from home? Where does all the power, the propulsion, the air, and the water come from? Well, the answer is right here. The European Service Module, or ESM. It's built by Airbus for the European Space Agency, and you can basically think of it as Orion's engine room, its power plant, and its life support system all rolled into one absolutely indispensable package.
So what does this high-tech backpack actually do? Well, the ESM is the powerhouse of the Orion spacecraft. It's responsible for basically everything, from propulsion and maneuvering to generating power, providing air and water, and even keeping the crew at a comfortable temperature. In short, it's what keeps the mission and the astronauts alive.
And to put its power into perspective, get this. The ESM's solar wings are massive. They span 19 meters. That's wider than a city bus. Those wings are covered in 15,000 solar cells, generating enough electricity to power 2 entire homes. And it does all of this while hurtling through the vacuum of space hundreds of thousands of kilometers from Earth. Now this is where the story gets really interesting. This is the first time in its history that NASA has relied on a non-US partner for such a critical component of a human spaceflight mission. It's a huge testament to the skill and expertise of European engineers, and it really signals a new era of international cooperation in space. And the complexity of these modules is just staggering. Each one is a symphony of engineering with over 20,000 individual parts. To connect everything, there are nearly 12 kilometers of cables packed inside. That's longer than the runway at most international airports.
But hey, even with the most advanced spacecraft, you still have to get it off the ground. And to send Orion to the moon, you need a truly colossal amount of power. That's where the Space Launch System, or SLS, comes in. It's not just a big rocket. It is the most powerful rocket ever built by humanity, period.
So here you can see the entire Artemis launch vehicle stack. At the bottom, you've got the massive core stage with its 4 powerful RS-25 engines, flanked by 2 solid rocket boosters. And sitting right at the very top is the Orion spacecraft, ready for its incredible journey. Building a rocket of this scale is just a monumental effort. The SLS is the first exploration-class rocket NASA has built since the legendary Saturn V that took the Apollo astronauts to the moon. These images really give you a sense of the sheer size of the components and the incredible engineering required to assemble them. To get off the ground, the SLS needs an enormous amount of fuel. The core stage alone holds nearly 3 million liters of supercooled liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Now, to keep it liquid, that propellant has to be chilled to mind-bogglingly cold temperatures. We're talking minus 253 degrees Celsius for the hydrogen and minus 183 for the oxygen. That is colder than any naturally occurring temperature on Earth. So all of this hardware, all this fuel, and all this engineering comes together in one of the most dynamic and powerful events you can possibly imagine, the launch. The first 8 minutes of the mission are a dramatic, high-speed ride from the launch pad right into Earth's orbit. The first few minutes of the launch are just a whirlwind of controlled chaos. At T-0, the engines ignite, unleashing millions of pounds of thrust. Just 2 minutes into the flight, the massive solid rocket boosters have already burned through all their fuel and are jettisoned. And then at the 8-minute mark, the main engine shut down. The ride to orbit is over.
Think about that. In just 8 minutes, the Orion spacecraft has gone from sitting still on the launch pad to screaming through space at over 27,000 kilometers per hour. That's fast enough to circle the entire Earth in just over an hour. At this point, Orion is in orbit, and its journey to the moon can truly begin.
So, we have the incredible technology, we have the international partnership, and we have the mission plan. But why does this all matter? What is the bigger picture behind our return to the moon? It matters because the moon is a vital proving ground. Every technology we test, every habitat we build, and every challenge we overcome in operating a permanent outpost on the lunar surface, well, that provides the critical experience we need for humanity's next giant leap, sending the first astronauts to Mars.
You know, Mark Steckling, the head of space exploration at Airbus, he put it best. For so long, the moon has just been a light in the sky. Soon, it's going to be a new frontier for humanity, a place where we live, work, and explore.
And that leads us to a final thought. The technological push of the Apollo program helped spark the creation of Silicon Valley, giving us the computers and smartphones we use every single day. So the question we're left to ponder is, what incredible innovations and world-changing technologies will the Artemis generation create?